Welcome to the 22nd episode of the It's Been Said podcast. I'm your host, SAI Executive Director Lisa Remy. Each show is dedicated to conversations on leadership as we further SAI's mission to support, encourage, and develop Iowa's educational leaders and learners. We're excited to welcome guest Jason Groendyke, East Elementary Principal at Sheldon Community School District and the Iowa Elementary Principal of the Year. Well, welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so excited that you're going to be on the show with me today. So Jason, first, please introduce yourself as well as your school to our listeners.
Yeah, Jason Groendyke, East Elementary Principal in Sheldon, Iowa. The 2024 school year will begin my 11th year as a principal here at East Elementary. And overall, it'll be the 22nd year in public education. My path, I guess, to the elementary school kind of took a different path than maybe most people. I have been in the district now for 19 years. I was able to teach at the middle school, 5th and 6th grade science and social studies under Cindy Barwick, and just learned a ton. I mean, Cindy is a great mentor. She's done amazing things at the middle school. And, I knew when I was teaching there for 8 years, that's somebody that I really wanted to model after what I do here at the elementary school. So was in the district prior to becoming the principal here, teaching middle school. Absolutely loved it, but this position came open here at East Elementary, and was fortunate enough to be able to be offered this position and accept it. I originally accepted it as an interim position. There were some things that were going on with leadership that felt like they needed some changes, and I was on an interim basis and for 1 year, and was fortunate enough to have Robin Spears come and ask me basically, what do you think about continuing on as elementary principal? We're happy with the job you're doing. The school board's happy. I think the staff over there really enjoys you in the building, and was very, very fortunate to be offered that, and here I am beginning my 11th year here.
Yeah, wow. It's been quite the journey.
Yeah, it has. And, I did not think that elementary is probably really in my future because I was all middle school. Even before Sheldon Middle School, I was at Webster City for 2 years. And, Becky Hacker there, and learned amazing things from her. And I had Gary Jansen as an assistant principal, and just those two individuals really helped shape me as well. And then I actually started off in a small rural district of Albert City, Truesdale, where I was kind of a jack of all trades, taught 6th and 7th grade, but about every curricular area that you could think of, I taught, and everything you could coach, I coached. But thankful for all my years in public education so far, and just want to continue to grow the profession and help everyone become just the best possible version of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So Jason, we know that in the summer, there's a lot of work to be done as a school principal, but not everyone really is familiar with what summer looks like for a building level leader. So could you describe what summer planning typically looks like for you?
Yeah. For me, it's really, I have those conversations. They are starting before summer, I guess, if you want to say, with my staff. But the summer is a time for me to probably get work done. During the school year, it's really hard to get the work done, just not wanting to be in the office a whole lot, getting out in the building and in the classrooms and, with the teachers, with the kids. But really, the summer is the time in which I can take the time maybe to myself and reflect on the data and just reflect on how the year went. East Elementary had a great year last year. We received a lot of recognition, not that we needed to receive that recognition and know we're doing a great job, but the summertime is just a time for me to look at standardized test scores and look at that data and see where are we excelling, what are areas in which we need to improve, and just make the adjustments for students, just to really help our students just be the best that they can be. Looking at classroom essential standards, skills, what adjustments do we need to make to our essential standards and skills? We try to every year, we try to have those conversations which we vertically align our essential skills basically looking at what is it that second grade is expecting first grade to teach and so forth. So really looking at that, and do we need to make adjustments for that? Looking at any sort of survey data we have, conditions of learning survey, climate survey, looking at teacher that they have done, did they accomplish their goals and everything. But probably the big one is really professional development. What are the areas in which we need to address to become better prepared and equipped for our students? Because that's what we're here for. We're here for the students. It's all about the students and providing what we can for them to become the best that they can be. So really looking at that, diving deep into the data is the time. The summer allows me the time to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned several pieces of data that you look at. So as you're looking at that data, what do you hope, or what are your key outcomes from looking at that you hope to achieve over the summer as you're planning for the fall?
Yeah, so we're looking at where the students are obviously excelling, where they're advanced and they're proficient. Students that are not quite there yet, I'm looking at what do I need to address with my teachers to help them with the intervention time with those students. For instance, one thing that we're doing that we just started was the numeracy project this year at East Elementary. And so when I'm looking at math scores, whether it's on ISASS data or if it's on FAST data, how can we use the numeracy project and make that better for our intervention process for our students? So I'm looking at that, and then looking at how can I take it back into the classroom with the teachers, because we want the teachers to feel confident in what they're teaching the students and the intervention time. The other thing I'm looking at is growth. Students may not be proficient, but if they made a ton of growth, I'm never going to look at a student and say, gosh, buddy, I mean, I'm glad you made the growth, but you weren't proficient. I've had a student stand in front of my desk before and come in, and he, read 30 words correct in the fall. And then all of a sudden in the spring, he's coming in, he's saying, I read 100 words correct. And I'm going, that is awesome. I am so proud of you. Did he meet proficiency? No. But did he have a ton of growth? Yes, he did. And I was so proud of him. I'm never going to take that joy away from that student. So really just looking at how we can build on that. Even though he wasn't proficient, how can I build on getting him proficient? And so looking at that data and delivering that to the student.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else other than the data pieces that you mentioned that influences your summer planning activities?
I talked a little bit about professional development.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's two areas there's more than two, but two of the focal areas that we're going to look at East Elementary. The whole writing process itself, we need to address. It's really easy to sit there and say, well, we're going to focus on writing. Well, what are we going to focus on writing? We're going to focus on the process of writing for our students. And then also I mentioned the numeracy project as well. We're going to continue to look at that and how we can improve our math scores. The other things that I do, updating schedules, procedures, policies, those are things that we always have to look at and, make changes where changes need to be made. For me, I do like to have my master schedule completed prior to the school year ending, because part of our checkout procedures is I have my staff put together their schedule for the upcoming year. Well, if I don't have my schedule done, it's really hard for them to have their schedule done. So I try to have that finished prior to the end of the school year. But really, the summer is a time for me to reflect and to look at what can I do better to help my staff to become better. And then obviously that contributes to our students being better.
Mm-hmm. So my next question is really around that goal setting. And, you mentioned the different pieces of data that you look at. And you're also then taking that to that next level of what professional learning for your staff to ensure. So are there any other pieces that you'd like to share with our listeners around the process that you use for the goal setting for the next school year?
Yeah, I think that, you need to have a good pulse on where you are currently. And you also need to have a good idea of where you want to go. And it has to be a realistic goal. We have used SMART goals here before. For those people aren't, familiar with SMART goals, obviously they need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time oriented. So I think you need to know currently where you're at and where you want to go, and with that, put that into a SMART goal and really stick, hold true to that. Realize that you may not meet that goal, and that's okay if you don't meet that goal, but have that mentality that, okay, what is it that caused us not to meet that goal, and how do we need to adjust it and everything. So looking at those SMART goals, our teachers always do ITPDPs, the individual teacher professional development plans, and I always tell them as well, you need to make it meaningful, and it needs to have an impact, because if you don't make it meaningful and impactful to you, how do you think it's going to be for your students in the class? It's not just a process that we go through every year. It's not just a formality. And I really do feel like a lot of my teachers take it very seriously. And we've had a lot of teachers that actually have asked me, hey, can I continue on with that for the following year? Because I just didn't get the results that I wanted to this school year. I said, yes, absolutely. That's fine. And, we're always constantly doing check-ins, and I'm looking at those, and I'm having conversations with staff as needed to help them to meet those goals. So those are kind of some of the things that we look at.
Mm-hmm. So how do you ensure that those goals, that whether they're the individual goals of your teachers and or your building level goals, are ambitious yet attainable?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to you need to have a good idea of where you're at, and you also need to make sure you're setting a realistic goal. I can't sit there and say, if we're 60% proficient in the area of reading and then setting a goal for, hey, I want to be 90%. Well, that's a pretty lofty goal, right? And so I think that you need to have that good idea where you're at, and you also need to set that realistic goal. And you need to have conversations with your staff. Like for me, I'm constantly having communication with my staff and having that collaboration with them. I'm sitting down with them, whether it's on a Wednesday staff meeting, or if it's afterwards that staff meeting, going and having a third grade level team meeting with them and asking them, what do you think? Where are you at? Here's where you've been. Here's where you're currently at. Where do you want to go? And then we do have those conversations. And sometimes those conversations aren't easy. Sometimes those conversations are hard. And sometimes staff members just they maybe don't want to push themselves or push the students as much as, they should, because they want to play it safe, right? And they're afraid of failing or not meeting that goal. That's okay. All right. But I'd rather push my kids a little bit more than just to set a goal that's just, it's right there where, yep, they're going to get it. We can celebrate it, but yet we know they can do better. So I think you have to, like I said, know where you're at, know where you want to go. And it's okay to push your kids, and it's okay for me to push my staff too, to maybe get out of their comfort zone a little bit. And, I've said before, not that it's maybe a good saying. I said, well, it's okay to, you better get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I've said that before, and I don't mean that in a bad way whatsoever. And what I mean by that is, it's okay to challenge yourself. It's okay to challenge our kids, because they can achieve great things. And if we aren't going to push them, how are we going to grow? And we want to make sure that we're growing our students and helping them be the best versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking, and then you said the phrase about being uncomfortable with, or being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we're uncomfortable that we grow.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. It's very easy just to kind of get stuck in the same old routines. I mean, that's really easy, but are we getting any better? Are we growing ourselves? Are we growing our minds or brains? That then correlates to our students as well. So yeah, there's a lot of truth to that saying.
Yeah, for sure. How do you involve staff? You've talked a lot about staff, but how do you involve staff in the work that you're doing this summer?
Yeah, so it's constant communication. The summertime is difficult to communicate with staff, because it's their time. For a lot of my staff, they have family members. They have young children, they have grandchildren, and it's their time to relax, rejuvenate, and previous year and, get that passion to come back for the following year. But that's where a lot of the conversations have to happen before school is even out. We're not having those conversations in March. I'll be honest with you. We're not. We're having conversations around ISASP in March, but April, after ISASP, probably that middle of April, late April, we're having conversations. And in May, we are. It usually starts with my building leadership team. I will ask them, they represent, of course, every individual in the building. And I'll usually pose a question out there. And then for some reason, staff members feel a lot more comfortable talking to their peers than coming in and talking to me, right? I have a great relationship with my staff, but there's some things they'll obviously say to their peers rather than to the principal. But it usually starts with putting a question out there about, what are the needs? What are the direction we want to go? What do we want to focus on for the following year? And then and I usually have a good sense of what I want to do, and we'll see if the two mesh. And usually they do, which is great. But we have those conversations in April and May, and starts the building leadership team. And then we have a staff meeting on every Wednesday. And from there, I have the conversation with the whole staff, hey, this is the direction that we're thinking we're going to go. This is what I'm going to plan for going into the summer, over the summer, and this is what we can expect for the 24-25 school year. Does anybody have any, comments, questions, concerns? And you open it up to your staff because, they're the ones that are in the classroom each and every day doing the work. And, I realize that, the building, the elementary school, myself, we're only as good as what they are, right? And we need to prepare them to be the best that they can be. And so I want them to be open and honest with me if they have any concerns about the planning, the professional development that we're going to be focusing on for the 24-25 school year. So it really starts, before the summer, because summer is a hard time to get a hold of people, having those conversations, April, May, and just telling them, be open and honest with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after you have all of those conversations and have that direction, is there anything specific that you do then during the summer to, whether it's put documents together, or I don't know what your processes are there at Sheldon?
Yeah. So usually what we do, a lot of our professional development involve our local AEA, right? And that is a little bit of a mess right now. Still going to provide services, obviously, for us, and we're very thankful for them. But it starts then in May, once we decide what we're going to do, is reaching out to those individuals. And I work with my instructional coaches a ton. My instructional coaches do a lot of, I guess you want to say, behind the scenes. They do a lot of the work behind the scenes with organizing things. So we usually are reaching out to the people that are going to provide the PD. We're reaching out to them in May. And then over the summer, what we're doing is we're just putting together a plan of, this is what we expect. Here's the expectation. And we'll share that out with the individuals that are going to provide the PD, so they can have a sense of direction of what we want to do. I know one thing that we talked about this year for our writing is my staff. I'm sure they'll love me, but they'll have homework. After we meet on Wednesdays. I think we're going to meet on 11 Wednesdays for the handwriting process, but they'll have homework every time afterwards. And I made it clear to my instructional coach, who's been communicating with our local AEA person, that I want to have an assignment, not because I want them to be busy or trying to create busy work for my staff, but I firmly believe if we're presenting, or providing this PD, they have to put a little bit of work into it so they understand, what it takes to deliver that into their classroom to benefit their students. So putting, those things together as far as what's the expectations during the professional development, putting those documents together, sharing them out at the beginning of the year. I do not share them out over the summer, because in the summertime, they might have, how many emails that some teachers, they check their email all the time. And some teachers, they probably leave and they might check it once in June, once in July, or some people come back in August and they have a ton of emails, and I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. So I usually will prepare documents, on a Google Doc, and then just kind of keeping everybody up to date, what we're going to do and kind of the process. And then I'll share those out in August once we get back to school.
Yeah. Sounds like a great process. So, how do you ensure, Jason, that your values are integrated into your overall goal setting, school strategy, planning?
Yeah, and I think that starts with, that's not just a summertime thing. That's something that we're constantly communicating throughout the school year. We really do believe here at East Elementary, all means all. We have that mindset that, all can learn, all can grow, and all can achieve. What that looks like for our individual students, it does look different, but each and every one of them is capable of doing great things and achieving great things. So having that constant communication throughout the year and reminding staff of that is essential. You walk into our building, the first thing that you're going to see, and I'm sure it's like this maybe in most schools, but we have, a canvas with our mission, our vision, and then our collective commitments to our students and to one another. And, that's the first thing you see. And, students will see it, parents will see it, whoever comes into our building. But it doesn't happen just during the summer. It's a constant communication throughout the year and reminding staff, why we're here. We're here for the kids, right? And we're here for the students, and we need to be our best for them. So that really does make summer planning easy because I'm not doing anything different during the summer that I'm not doing during the year, because those conversations have occurred throughout the entire year.
So, Jason, you mentioned, you always keep students at the forefront of all of your decision making. So, how do you ensure that happens for not only yourself, but your staff members as well?
Yeah, so with that, it's been probably 13, 14, 15 years ago, we took on the PLC initiative. And for those people who aren't familiar with PLC, it's Professional Learning Communities. We send staff members to the conference every single year that we can. This last year, we sent 17 staff members. We make sure that an administrator always goes as well. I've missed one time. The time that I missed was when my children were born over the summer, and my superintendent at the time kind of joked with me and said, "Well, you need to be there." Well, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there. But we send a number of staff members every year, and I think with that, we always have those 4 questions, based around our students. What is it we want all students to know? How will we know if they've learned it? What will we do if they don't know it? And then how will we extend that learning? So I think putting those 4 questions out there at all times, the decision making, whether it's during the school year, during the summer, I think it's important to always put that out there. And then that kind of makes it easy to always put students, I guess, at the forefront of all of the planning.
Staying on that thread of students, how do you have student input or feedback as part of your planning?
Yeah, so we have, couple different surveys that we do. Of course, everyone, does that conditions of learning survey, but we also have our climate survey that our school counselor will give to our students twice a year. We've kind of went back and forth. Is twice a year, is that not enough? Do we need to go, every 9 weeks do it? Do we need to go 3 times a year? But and we've kind of played around with everything, and we found that twice a year, first semester, second semester seems to work best. But with that, we really do look at the survey data from our kids, and our kids are usually very honest with us, and they tell us, what their experience is like here at East Elementary. They'll voice their concerns, and we'll look at that data and we'll address it as needed. I know one thing an area that we've struggled with, but just has been lower than we would want at East Elementary is, my peers treat me with respect, or my peers treat me with kindness. And while we may have 95% of our kids feel like they're being treated the right way, right? And a lot of schools maybe would be happy with that. And we are happy with that because it always could be lower, but we always want to have, 100%. That's our goal. We want 100% of our kids to have a positive attitude about East Elementary. And with that, obviously, that's the respect and treating each other with kindness. I am thankful that we do overall have 99% of our students have a positive attitude about school at East Elementary, and we're still trying to get that 100%. But we just always want to strive to be better in those areas. And when students tell us, a student might tell a teacher something happened out at recess, something happened, in the classroom. We take those things serious. We don't sit there and just brush it off like, you know, Johnny, he always complains about this or that. No, we're going to take the time, and I take the time, or my staff takes the time to talk to that student, and what can we do to make it better? Or we say, did you do anything? Are you doing anything as well? But we do take those things serious with our students, because we want them to feel safe here at East Elementary.
Mm-hmm. Could you share an example, or do you have an example of something specific that, based on student feedback, influenced a change?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to talk again about the climate survey, and with the results of kindness and respect. So I meet with my school counselor after we look at the climate survey results. Bailey Hennings, that's my school counselor. We'll sit down in my office and we'll meet and discuss the results. And I'll usually tell her, hey, these are areas that I feel we need to work on, and the kindness and respect was one of them. And so one thing that she did this year, and we actually did as a staff too, is we took a restorative practice approach. I don't know if you're familiar with the restorative practice approach and everything, but we took that on with our kids. And that's something, the kids, the students would get into their circles. And, of course, you're in your circles and you have your talking piece, and you have your, a question that you're posing to the students, and you're passing the talking piece around, and you're thinking, this is never going to work with first grade. This is never going to work with kindergarten. But, oh my gosh, it was amazing to see how the students they loved that approach to the guidance class that day. And she did that throughout really the third and fourth 9 weeks. She did that, and that was it was a game changer for our kids. It was a game changer for our students. They really took it seriously, and I felt like it allowed the students to connect on a different level as a homeroom and as a class. But we also did it as a staff, and that's kind of how I ran my staff meetings towards the end of the year. Is we went into our music room, we would be in a circle, and we take on the same approach. And again, I want to know what's going on with the students, what she's presenting to the students. And so if it can apply to us and we can do it as a staff, why would we not do it? But that made us connect as a staff in a different way. We grew closer towards the end of the year than we were the first semester. We were closer the second semester just because of that restorative practice. So she's doing that in the classroom, and we're seeing great results with our students.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Jason. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you next around positive school culture, and I'm just
Mhm.
thinking how using the restorative practices probably connects seamlessly, right, with positive
Yeah.
school culture.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I'm sure everyone says, having a positive climate culture is, one of the most important things to them. And it is. And that's no different for us. Having that positive climate school culture, we want a building in which students, staff, community members, anybody enters our door, we want them to feel welcomed, right? And for our students, we celebrate the heck out of them. We do. If they do great things every single day. And it may just be, we have orbgrams and orb acts. And so our orbgrams is, I encourage every teacher. I say, hey, you need to send out an orb-gram to every student in your class. You need to send one of those out to their parent. And, we do have some challenging students, but I said, even that challenging student, you can find something positive about him or her in which you can build that up, build that child up to their parent. A lot of times our parents are receiving phone calls from us or emails or, seesaw messages about what their child did wrong. Very rarely are they receiving a phone call, or a message about what their child is doing well. So we have our orbgrams in which we celebrate our students. We have our orb acts in which we encourage our students to write up on a piece of paper, hey, I saw Susie doing this in the hallway, with another student, or I saw this person cleaning up and without being asked. And we'll read that over the announcements in the morning. And students just love hearing their names on the announcements. But we also will, we'll have pizza parties, ice cream parties. Um, we get bouncy houses out on East Elementary lawn. The end of the school year is one of my favorite times, not because it's the end of the school year, because it's actually sad for me when it's the end of the school year, because, we're seeing a lot of great kids move on to the middle school, and we're saying, see you later to some of our students, because they're moving. And then, of course, over the summer, I'm not seeing the students as much as I would like. But the end of the year, we have 6, 7 bouncy houses out there on our East Elementary lawn. We had dunk tanks this year. We have field day set up. I'm grilling a lot of hot dogs and burgers for the entire staff and students. It's just, we celebrate the kids, and we do that throughout the year. We have different celebration days. We have reading days, but they're truly celebration days for our students. And the whole day is just dedicated to student activities. That, of course, it's revolved around academics, but it doesn't feel like that for the students. And so doing those things really truly does create a positive climate culture. But also, we took on 5 years ago Leader in Me. And with that, one thing that we really discussed, an initiative we took here at East Elementary, we need to get the community involved in our school. And so we have different times throughout the year in which we have the community members come in. In February, we have a week where it's called Lead with Love. And we have different activities planned, but we invite community members to come into our lunchroom and to come in and just sit down with the student, whether it's their own child or, someone that they know, sit down in the lunchroom and have lunch with them. We also have Lucky to Be at East, and we invite community members in during that time. But Family Fun Night is probably our biggest outreach that we have for our community members and our parents. It's just a night they come in for an hour and a half, and we have fun. We play games. The parents are able to come into the classrooms and see what the students are learning. And, they're able to see just a small little bit of what's going on here. And then they're hopefully able to take that home and, apply that with their own child. And we'll have, 400, 500, 600 people in the building for our Family Fun Night. Of course, we provide a meal for them and everything, but that's part of it, is having that warm, welcoming environment. And if you can do those things, you're going to create a positive climate culture for your students, for your families, and parents that are sending kids to the school. They know that I'm sending them to a good place. I'm sending them to a place that truly cares for my child, because parents are sending us their whole world. Everybody, their child is their whole world, and they want to know that we're providing them with the best possible, not only education, but just meeting their needs in general, and students, they're so important to us. It's just, we couldn't do our job without them, and we couldn't do our job without the support of our parents. And for staff members, our staff meetings, we usually start off with some sort of game, some sort of booster. And, it can be something as simple as, we're in our circles for restorative practice, bringing up a childhood memory, having 6 games up there. And what was your favorite, game as a child? Now, as our staff member, as our ages maybe have changed with staff members, some staff members are going, I don't know what that game is, and so we kind of have to adjust, because we have a lot of, 23, 24, 25-year-olds. And I'm on the other half, where I'm 44 and I don't know some of the stuff they're talking about. But no, we do have a good positive climate culture here at East Elementary.
Yeah, it's definitely evident how you're not only a positive climate and culture, but you're building community through all of that. What was your favorite game as a child? I'm curious, Jason.
My favorite game as a child was Monopoly.
Oh,
We played Monopoly growing up. I'm very competitive, and I didn't like it when I would have to pay my brother or sister because they bought the property and I had to pay them. Then pretty soon I'm bankrupt, and I maybe didn't handle that very well.
Life. I was Life around as a game
Yep.
for you? Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Life was one of my favorites. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, you have described lots of really positive, and very specific and very thoughtful, steps you take involving student voice, staff voice in your planning with goals and the next school year. challenges. Are there any challenges that you've faced, and what are those, and how do you overcome them as you think about all of that type of planning for that next school year?
Yeah. Some of the challenges over the summertime, one of the big ones is obviously communication with the staff. We don't always get to um, have that communication like I would like. And I'm the type that I don't like to, I guess, pester my staff if I don't have to, because I want to respect their time. It's their time to be away with their families. When needed, I'll send a text message, because that usually is the fastest way to communicate with them, or give a phone call. But other challenges that I face is I've had to hire over the summer before, and I'm currently going through that right now with our paraeducators, paraprofessionals. Having to hire new staff because I have students that have needs for next school year, and I don't necessarily have the staff, that's going to be able to meet all of their needs. We're going to do the best that we can with our current staff that we have, but hiring is always a challenge over the summer. You just hope that you get the best person possible, and it has to be the right fit. I'm never going to hire just to hire. I'm not going to have a body just to have a body. It has to be somebody that truly loves kids and truly wants to be here each and every day working with our students. So those are a couple challenges. Just not being able to maybe have the communication with the people that are providing the professional development for me. Yeah, they're checking their email, but again, not checking it as much as maybe I'm checking my email. I'm supposed to have 2-3 weeks off, but I'm constantly looking at my email. I'm constantly coming into work, and that's probably one of the things that my wife says to me. She's like, "You need to take time to get away, so you don't feel like you're not burnt out, but maybe stressed out at the start of the school year, just because you never got away during the summer." you know but just the communication aspect can be difficult as well, just with everybody, because it's their time. A lot of the people are not on contract during the summertime.
Mhm. Well, take your wife's advice, take a little time so that you can rejuvenate too,
Yeah,
before
well,
she's.
we're going to Disney. I should have said this at the beginning. I have, two children. I have twins, Harper and Hudson, and they are going to be in second grade here at East Elementary. Just turned 8 years old on July 10. But we're going to try the whole Disney World with two 8-year-olds. So wish me luck. Yeah.
I wish you luck.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's going to be resting for you, but
Yeah, I know.
it'll be fun.
I joked with Dana a little bit. I said, I'm actually heading your way July 23 for the elementary principals, the conference that you guys have there. But I said, I might need a vacation from my vacation.
So Jason, you've described lots of processes.
Yep.
How do you measure the success of what you put into place based on all of the planning that you've done as you look into the next school year? How do you measure that success?
I think you can say results. When you look at the results, whether it's the student data, look at the results and see if it's making a difference. But truly with my staff, you know, I have a good relationship with them, and I have very open and honest communication with them. And a lot of my staff will let me know if they felt the professional development was impactful, meaningful, worthwhile. And they'll also tell me if it's something that I think maybe we need to do this a little bit different. And so really going into the school year, it's just having being out in those classrooms, being out in the hallways, having that constant communication with my staff members. And they'll let me know, what I planned over the summer, if it's being impactful or not. Like I said, it's really easier for me to say, well, it's just the results. We have our intervention process, and, we're able to make adjustments to our intervention process, which is important. That is, I mean, it truly is. But, it's really having that communication and collaboration with the staff and getting a good idea of, how they're feeling about everything as well. I've been through professional development before where it's been hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't impactful, but it was hard. It didn't have the impact that I wanted. And, I've learned from those things as a building administrator. Uh, so I think just really having those conversations with my staff is big.
Mhm. All right. Final question. What advice would you give other principals and those listeners, any listeners who would like to enhance their processes as they're planning, whether it starts in the spring, as you mentioned, or throughout the summer?
Yeah, that'd be the biggest thing. Don't wait until the summer.
Mm.
If you're going to wait until the summer, I feel like you're going to be behind the eight ball already. Conversations need to happen, April. Some people may have them earlier, but I usually am an April, May type person that's having those conversations. The other thing is realize you're not a, it might feel like you're alone, being the building leader, but you have your administrative team that you can collaborate with. You have your building leadership team, and I know that the building principal is the leader of that team, but you also have your staff members you need to bounce ideas off of. Some things decisions need to be made from the top down, but you also need to have that collaboration with your staff, and they need to value their opinion and value what it is to say. Not that you necessarily need to agree with it and do that, but you need to at least give them a voice. So collaborate with individuals, and then reach out to other area principals. I have a pretty good relationship with the area principals, and asking them, just different questions about maybe the summer, maybe the previous school year, the upcoming school year, but just reaching out and having that good collaborative relationship with your area principals as well. In the end, it all does start with the relationships. And if we don't have that relationship piece, it's going to be hard to be successful. I firmly believe that. And that's something that I talk to my staff about all the time, every year. They probably get sick and tired of me saying it, but I say the relationship piece is more important than the academic piece. And I say that because if you develop relationships with your students, they're going to do anything for you. I view that as a building leader too. If I develop good, solid, strong relationships with my staff members, they're going to do a lot of the things that I ask them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the relationship piece is huge in this profession, and you need to have it. I mean, we need to have it with our students, with our staff. We need to have it with parents. Parents are essential to have a positive relationship. Even myself calling up, and a lot of my phone calls, obviously they aren't always positive when I'm talking to the parents, but I've had those phone calls before where I've called up just to say, hey, I'm so proud of your child, because our circle drive out here, I had a kindergartner at the beginning of this past school year, had no clue what to do. And this fourth grade boy took it upon himself to go and help this little kindergarten student. She's crying. She didn't know what to do. And I thought, you know what, to have a fourth grader do that for a kindergartner, that really deserves a phone call to the parent. And I called the parent and I said, you have a great son. I said, I am so proud of him. Nobody asked him to do it. He took it upon himself. And that parent just started crying, and that's not what I was going for, but it's just the relationship piece is so important throughout all of this work. That's what we need to remember is that we need to form good, strong relationships. And it's impossible to do it by yourself. You know, a lot of, like I said, building leaders think that maybe they're alone, but they're not. We have great people around us all the time. All you need to do is ask for their input, and maybe ask for their help. And not, again, you make the decision as the building leader, but you need to have a collaborative relationship with the people you work with.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing today and being a guest on our podcast. Yeah, it's just been wonderful to hear your work and the successes that you've had there at
Yeah,
East
I
Elementary.
appreciate it. Yep, I appreciate it. One of the things before we leave here, last year was a special year for East Elementary, and I have people ask me, how are you going to top that? Being recognized as a National Blue Ribbon School, and then of course, with my recognition as well for Principal of the Year. And I just said, we're going to continue to do what we've always done, and if that receives recognition, then great, that receives recognition. But throughout all of that, we know that we do job that we can for our students, for our staff, for our parents. And I think every one of my staff members, when they go home at night, they can rest their head on their pillows at night knowing they did their best job and they give it their all that day. So just super proud of the people I work with on a daily basis, and so thankful for the people I work with each and every day. I wouldn't want to be on this boat with anybody else, because I have a special group here, and I'm very, very proud of them.
Yeah, well, and the leader makes a big difference too. So congratulations again on the Iowa Principal of the Year, and being a Blue Ribbon school. Absolutely had a great year.
Yep. Special year. Thank you.
Summer offers additional opportunities to focus on your professional growth, connect with leaders from around the state, and gather inspiration as you build momentum for the coming school year. Check out the events listing on the SAI website at sai-iowa.org/events for the coming month's schedule, including the Can't Miss annual conference, August 7th and 8th.